What is up, guys? Welcome back. Hopefully, you guys are able to join me. If not, this will be recorded. You can watch it later. I'm hiding outside right now because it's raining. Before I go in, I'm at the Kroger at 26 in Van Dyke. I'm going to kind of walk you through if I'm doing my grocery shopping. I don't actually really grocery shop all that much anymore. I use like Kroger Click List and things like that because it's, I think, the absolute best invention ever. And I love it, and it's very convenient for me and my family. But if you are having to shop, or obviously when you do Click Lists, things like that, sometimes things get missed or what have you. So kind of before you get started, a couple tips is to, you probably have heard me say this a million times, but to plan ahead, right? Like, what is your plan going to the store? What do you need? What are some staple items that you need to make sure that you're going to get and you're going to prepare for the week? And we've talked about this before when it comes to prepping and planning for your week, is what events do you have coming up, what's on the horizon, like what do you have to do or take care of, and then start to plan around that. If you are, if you have a big family or you're grocery shopping on a budget and anything like that, I know costs are up right now on a lot of things. So one thing that can help is get on the local grocery store's email list, right? Or go online or go on their Facebook page and find like what are some of their promotions going on, what are some deals going on this week, and then you can even plan your meals and what you need at the grocery store around that. Another tip is, as you're getting started, is not only use the items that are on sale, but like find items that you can use for multiple meals, so you're limiting the thing where things get perishable, right? If something goes bad or something, you you don't get the you don't use something that you plan to use, like get items that you feel you can use for multiple different types of meals, and get creative. Use that every week. Get something new, try something different. Another tip is, when you're planning it out, is what can you get in bulk? So things like meat and grains and nuts and seeds and things of that nature. Like, try to get in bulk, and then, like, for like instance meat, like I mentioned when we did the meal prep videos, I would buy like a case of 40 pounds worth of chicken, and then I cut it myself. And then put it in individual bags, and then I freeze it, right? Like, you can save a ton of money. Yes, it's a little bit more time, but if you're looking to save money, that's a good way that you can do it. You always know you have it on hand, so it helps make sure that you're like, oh crap, I didn't get chicken this week, or whatever it is, because you're always more than likely going to have it, so you need to re-up. So buying in bulk, and then shopping around those bulk items. So like, what are some things that you can make easily in your week, like soups and chilies and stews and things of that nature. Eggs, right? I showed you the eggs in the meal prep. So what are some different things that you can get, so you can buy in bulk, and all that? I mentioned like getting the coupons online. When you're creating your list, like, so what do I need for the week in order to be successful at the grocery store, is when you're creating your list, try to segment it in the areas of the store, the sections of the store. So like produce, and then like meats, and then dairies and things like that. If you do that, it'll save you a ton of time and ensure that you don't forget anything along the way, and that's obviously important with that. So organizing your grocery list based on the sections of the store. A couple do's and don'ts. A couple things that you want to limit while you're at the store is, if you're trying to shop on a budget, I would limit the prepared food sections, and I would limit the convenient options. So what I mean by convenient in this scenario is, instead of buying trimmed, cut up chicken breast, opt for like a whole chicken, right? It's not as convenient. You got to cut it up, you got to cook it differently, but it's gonna save you some money. You're not gonna have to. You're not paying for the trimming and all that stuff, and segmenting it out. Some things you can do, though, that are more beneficial, is if you're looking to save time as opposed to money, the convenient options or the prepared options is okay, and that actually might be beneficial for you, because you're going to already have meals that are cooked or prepared for you, so you can save some time there, but it is more expensive. One thing is, the freezer section is actually okay, and so is canned foods. Like, it is like a lot of times, like with vegetables, for instance, they'll freeze them right away, so they actually preserve a lot of the nutrients in them, believe it or not. So don't be afraid to get the freezer section of fruit and veggies, or the canned section. Is it as good as fresh? No, but I wouldn't make that your deterrent not to get it. You know, and if that can save you some time, and that can save you some money, then I would say go ahead and do it. Now, a couple don'ts is, I've probably heard this many times, don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry, right? When you're hungry, your blood sugar's off, you're gonna make poor decisions no matter how strong-willed you are. So don't go hungry, keep to your plan, stick to your plan, stick to what you have prepped ahead of time. And then secondly, you know, try not to go with like the kids and different things there, because obviously they're not going to have the same mindset as you, and they're going to want like the candies and the simple things and everything there. So making sure that you you know, kind of go on your own or anything like that whenever possible is probably going to help your cause too. So I'm going to jump in as we're going here. I don't get rained on. And generally when I go in, I'm going to start, hopefully I don't make you guys sick, bouncing back and forth. The first place I would start is in the produce section, right? It's right here at Kroger, first one. And generally when you want to start just like how you eat. So generally when we recommend when you're eating your meals is to look for options or look for situations where you can eat your produce and your meat sections first. So like if I'm looking through the different produce, a couple things to look for is like the smell of it, the color of it, the texture of it, and how firm it is. So if I'm looking at like these apples, I know my kids really like these ones. You know, I'm going to look. I should have brought somebody else. I should have brought Justin with me so he can hold the phone while I do this. You know, I'm going to look for ones that have, you know, decent color, that they're relatively firm, that have a good odor to them, everything there. One kind of little trick when you're grabbing produce is to grab the ones that are actually in the back. Generally the ones that are in the back, they, you know, if you've ever worked in a grocery store, they generally will move it up a little bit. So like the older ones out that have been out a little bit longer are usually more in front. So a little trick to get a little bit fresher is picking the ones in the back. Sometimes will benefit you, and you'll do that there. So that's always kind of beneficial when you're doing it. One thing I do recommend with this is I am a big advocate of choosing organic over non, just because when things are sprayed, when things are, you know, pesticides, herbicides, things like that on them, they're obviously not going, or they're going to have a situation where they are they're going to disrupt hormones and things like that. So I would really encourage to try to shop organic if you can. Now I know there's a budget aspect to that. It's generally going to cost a little bit more, but you might find in the long run it's not quite as expensive doing it, because it's going to save you on your health, different things there. So I would generally recommend to do that if you're going to do it. I think one of my other tips when I'm going through produce is, you know, trying to get creative and try to find like, how can I shop for the rainbow? So if I'm, you know, the different colors of the different fruits and vegetables is going to have different benefits and different nutrients and things like that. So, you know, if I'm looking at these peppers, for an example, I have green, red, orange, and yellow. They're all relatively the same, and they're going to have somewhat similar nutrients, but the different colors will generally associate with different color nutrients as well. So I'd encourage, try to get creative and try to find ways that you can fit in different types of colored veggies and things like that. 'Cause there's going to be some benefits to getting kind of the colors of the rainbow, if you will, when you're picking these out. And again, looking at the different options for firmness, softness, choosing in the back, in different items there. So
grabbing a couple different things, picking out. I'm not going to go through my whole list and everything there of like what I'm going to grab or what I would need, but those are kind of some of the things that I would generally look for. I also wouldn't, like, if you're getting salads, things like that, I wouldn't be afraid of some of these boxed ones. Are they as good as fresh? No, probably not, but they might stave longer. And instead of throwing away half of it because you didn't get to it, you might end up using a little bit more. I love arugula. I actually can't have arugula based on my nutrition lab testing that I did. So I'm going to stick a little bit more to some spinach and things like that. But I do generally will get these ones sometimes because they're organic, they're easy, but they're not. They're generally going to stay a little bit fresher, a little bit longer. So that's always helpful. Now, if saving time is important for you, getting some of these pre-cut veggies, things like that, can be beneficial. They're already cut for you. Now they're a little bit more expensive than the fresh stuff, but they can be beneficial there. So, that's always an option. All right, go see Starbucks and Nina. Again, pre-cut fruit, same thing. It's going to be more expensive, but if it saves you time and that's more of what you need from this, then go ahead and do it. There's not a wrong area to that. Now, we talked about kind of some of the pre-made things and different things there. I would only recommend this if you really need to save a bunch of time. There can be some benefits to doing this, but more times than not, you're probably going to run into more issues, harm than good, by doing some of this stuff. So, any chance you can, do something fresh. Now, one of the things I do a lot with my family is we'll come over here and we'll get one of these pre-made whole chickens. And what I love about this is it's simple, it's quick, it's easy. I can just pop it in the oven when I get home or what have you and warm it up if I need to, unless I'm grabbing it fresh. But it's a very easy thing that I can have on hand every single week, just to ensure that I have pre-made chicken for myself. So if I'm like running behind or I got a lot of stuff going on, I can cut up half of this and bring it with me for lunch in a salad or something like that. So it's just a nice, easy, quick way to get some of those key nutrients that you may need, and a very easy and convenient option. If I'm going to look at, I'll show you this over here. So I'll show you in a different spot. Coming over here for my cheese lovers, I think if you are an advocate of cheese, you're eating cheese. Some of my favorites are, I love brie cheese, by the way, but so if you want to get me a gift for my birthday, you can get me some brie cheese. But some of my favorites for health purposes is going to be is more along the lines of Parmesan and feta. They're a little bit lower calorie, good nutrients in them. But actually, goat cheese, believe it or not, is probably the best that we could eat. I also, you can see on here, it says like pasteurized. I actually recommend to do raw. So goat cheese is actually one of the closest in resemblance to human dairy, if you will. So our bodies can actually digest it much better and easier than cow dairy. So just something to kind of keep in mind with that. Obviously, this is a section I would recommend to stay away from, the breads and cookies and things like that. So I'm going to go past to seafood, to meat, and go over here. So when I'm getting my meat and when I'm getting seafood, a couple things that I'm generally looking for is, well, first off, you may have noticed I'm kind of going around and looking at the perimeter of the store. Generally, that's where the whole foods are, the most nutritious options are when it comes to your shopping. So I would always start there. Always go around the perimeter, because that's where you're gonna get your best options. From there, if I'm trying to get what I want to do for seafood or what I want to get for meat, I always recommend, similar to the organic, I recommend more in its natural state. So I like more of the wild caught and free range when it comes to meat, and grass fed when it comes to beef options. They're always a little bit better. Now, the one thing when it comes to
the wild caught, is you got to be a little conscious of not eating too frequently some of the larger fish, the deeper water fish, that they are going to have a little bit more mercury. So that's like things like salmon, tuna, swordfish, things like that. So I just wouldn't go crazy on some of those, so you're not getting too much mercury. One of the things that I do, you can kind of see these, this section right here specifically, the citrus herb roasted salmon. I always have this in my freezer, so it's a very quick and easy thing. I use the air fryer, freaking love that thing. I throw it in there for like 12 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's a quick, simple, relatively healthy thing that I can just pop in and eat, and I always have it. So having some freezer made options is not going to kill you. So I'm not saying you need to go and have it and it's the best option in the world, but I would recommend to have things like that just on hand, ready to go, just in case for situations like this. Even the smart ingredient type ones like this, like you can see what the ingredient list is. So when you're shopping for freeze based ones, if I'm coming here, like if I look at some of those ingredients, it's all like simple things. It's primarily grains, the actual fish itself, and then just seasonings, right? Like that's more of what you want when you're looking for frozen items. So when in doubt, do that. Now I know this says farm raised, that's what I just said not to do, but again, when in doubt, like it's not, you got to do what's gonna be the most convenient for you and help you to kind of stay on track with this stuff, and we need to make it simplistic. So I'm gonna grab one of these. I think I am out. I just used my last one the other day. So a couple things when looking through the meat counter and things like that, if I'm looking at beef, for instance, a couple things that I want to look for is, I want to get relatively leaner cuts, because the fattier the beef, the more toxin potential that it has in there. But a couple things that I'm looking for is I'm looking for, like, is it turning brown, anything like that? Because if I'm seeing beef that's like kind of turning brown, anything there, then it's something that I don't want to do. A couple things here with the steaks is those thick pieces of fat are more aren't what you want. They're gonna add flavor a little bit, yes, but you see those white lines in the middle, that's called, so like that right there's a vein. These ones right here are more marbling, so that's where the flavor comes from, and that's more what you want to look for if you want like a good piece of beef. It's going to be more flavorful. It's not the bad fat that you want, or that you're going to get in that. So generally recommend to go more for things like that when you're looking for your meat. The marbling part of it, and you can look it up to see other examples, but is generally what's recommended for getting a good quality piece, as opposed to just a very fatty piece. And that's where some of that stuff comes. One thing is to kind of save time and money is, you can ask for, or you can even see it here in situations, is getting more whole fillets or whole cut pieces of the beef can actually save you money. You can go to some butcher shops, and you can go in, for, if I'm doing like a strip steak, which would be right here, you can get the whole strip loin sometimes. Now, sometimes that might be 15 pounds, 20 pounds. Because sometimes they'll cut it for you, but you might be able to save money. So it might drop it from $13.99 a pound to $10.99 a pound, but you're getting 20 pounds of steak, right? So that is an easy, quick way that you can save a little bit of time. Save a little bit of money when you're shopping for your meat, but it's not going to, it'll take a little bit of effort in your end. Now, depending on where you go, you might be able to find, the butcher might be able to cut it for you and wrap it individually for you. And if that's the case, then, go ahead and do it. But it's just a simple way, asking for whole cuts, larger portions, to save time and money there. So I'm going to come over here to our pre-cut things. So again, if I look here, here's like a perfect example. I mentioned this earlier. So, convenience when it comes to meat is going to be more expensive generally. So
Same thing with like what we talked about the steaks. So like the individual rep steak or the individual steaks are gonna be more expensive than if you get a whole cut. Where if I look at the chicken breast, this is $8.99 a pound versus a whole chicken is only $3.99 a pound. So I'm gonna get more bang for my buck, and it's gonna be a lot cheaper getting a whole chicken versus individually trimmed and cut breast. So something just to consider when it comes to getting your meat products. One thing here to be careful of, so vegetarian fed, free range, organic, so this would be a good option, whereas opposed to something like this where it says, you know, cage free. Cage free and free range are much different. Cage free isn't necessarily is going to be as good of an option as a free range, because free range chicken, for instance, are able to roam around, eat whatever food they would naturally eat, so bugs and things like that. So always look for free range and not necessarily cage free when it comes to that. If I'm looking for, you know, if your family does do things like sausage, things like that, a couple things to kind of look out for when you're in this kind of section here is just be really careful of some of the sugar content and the additives in some of those pieces of pre-cooked, so like things like sausage, for example, is they can have a lot of different items. And then I'm going to show you in the freezer section actually like a better option for a sausage, where it's more like just strictly meat and seasonings, because that's more of what you want in your sausage to make it not as bad, is doing something along those lines. So sticking to, you know, pre-cooked meat, that's strictly more just the meat and seasonings, as opposed to all the other additives and sodium and things like that. So just kind of something to consider with that. See if they have an example here. Let's see the one I'm looking for. So here is a good one. One thing too you can do to save money is look for more of the store brand. So Kroger's is Simple Truth. The Simple Truth generally you'll find is maybe a little bit cheaper. But if I look here, I got the protein, and then you can see it's primarily just seasonings in there. So this would be actually a pretty good option to choose, as opposed to something more. Let me see if I can find a better example. I got so if we go here, this one is not as bad, but you can see all like the dextrose and the glutamate and different things there, the dry milk. So like there's a lot more like additives and things like that in this one, as opposed to the Simple Truth option. So, you know, that's when you're looking for pre-cooked meat, like that's what you want to look for. Now the one thing with pre-cooked meat obviously is the sodium's going to be a lot higher, so you got to be cognizant of that and make sure that, you know, ideally we want to stay under like 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. Sometimes some people even less, so just something to consider there. Looking at like bacon, things like that, so like turkey, chicken, bacon is going to be better. A little bit healthier option for you there.
Yeah, why not? It's gonna happen sooner or later, you know?
Yeah. We get away.
Right. So talked about cheeses, benefits there. I'm gonna come over to eggs. Alright, so if I'm looking here, right, here's just a typical commercially raised eggs here. Here's one that is natural, cage free. And here's one that is, it says pasture raised. Again, it's a little misleading. Whereas this one is actually, you can see, is actually free range. So if I'm going to choose any of these, I'm probably going to choose this one, the actual free range one, because the eggs are going to be much healthier, because the chicken was much healthier. And that's probably the route that I'm going to go. Yes, is it more expensive? Yes, but to me, my family's health and my health are worth spending money on, right? So to me, that's important. I'm going to prioritize that. So that's what I would grab with that. So let me grab some because I need some. And if you get eggs from us, you can get Berna is one of our members at Raw. She she brings some in from her own chicken coop, so always helpful there. Where am I going here? Yogurt. So here's what I wanted. So yogurt can be a good option. I'm actually an advocate of not doing fat-free. You got to be very careful when it comes to fat-free versus sugar-free, because nobody's going to buy it if it tastes like crap. So you ideally want it to, the flavoring is going to come from either the sugar or the fat generally, or some type of added fake sugar. So I'm actually an advocate of doing full fat or higher fat content of the dairy. And you can see like the difference. Like this is going to be just Greek yogurt with some different probiotics in this one, versus something like this that's going to have a lot of the sugar content and everything there. So you can see this one has like 17 grams versus 8 in that one. This one's all natural. So just be very careful of the sugar content and the additives. So things like this, it's the same thing, Faye, which Faye is one of my favorite. But this one's going to have all the sugar in this little bit right here. So that's something you want to consider. I encourage you to do the same thing, but yourself. Get the full fat one and flavor it with fruit or raw honey, something like that. So something there. Now we'll go to the freezer section here. If I'm going to go to the freezer section, I'm generally going to do it for a little bit of convenience. I talked about some seafood things there that you could do, but wouldn't always recommend it. Let's see. So when I come to the freezer section, generally what I'm going to get is maybe like some healthier options that for the kids. So things like an actual good quality product, like a chicken nugget that's less of the bread and the bad stuff and less ingredients, and it's more just the meat. Like you can see with this one, it's all things that I can understand and comprehend what it's saying. Around for the route that I wanted to go and show you. But again, similar to the other things, I'm going to look for opportunities of, an organic or things that don't have as much of the breading and things like that, or something more like this that's seasoned and marinated and things like that, and I can just use a dipping sauce to control how much of the additive stuff that I add to it as opposed to that. But generally, if I'm coming to the freezer section, I'm getting like things like breakfast sausage, so things like this, or looking at frozen fruit and vegetables. So I might get vegetables that I can thaw out if I need to, or put into like stews and things like that to make it easier. Or I'm gonna get fruits that I can use for my smoothies. And different things there. The biggest thing that you want to look for, obviously I mentioned earlier, is the sodium content. Ideally, we want to have 23 milligrams or less a day. But here's a better option. So Simple Truth, again, is a pretty good brand. Yes, it's vegetarian fed, so not quite the greatest, but this isn't going to be a terrible option for a just in case. You can pop it in the microwave for a few minutes and you're good to go. Same thing with like a grass-fed beef burger. Again, something quick and easy that you could take with you, grab, very easy that you can just pop in and it's ready to go. So again, simple things like that to help with convenience and stuff like that can help you and not stir you off track that much, which is ideally what we want in this. Something that you can be successful with, that isn't overly time consuming, saves you know, it's something you'd enjoy, but it's not going to be super detrimental to what you're trying to do with your health and all that. So one other area I generally will come down here, like this healthy food section. This is where I might get some of the stuff for the kids and things like that, that I really want to look for, when I'm kind of coming down the aisles. So when coming down the aisles, there's a lot of things that you want to look for, and I think the biggest thing is really just getting an understanding of how to read labels. So for instance, if I'm going to grab one of these, a couple things when it comes to let's see, let me get a better situation here. This might be easier. So, okay, this is a perfect example. So reading labels, one of the first thing is, when looking at the ingredients list, is you want to be able to pronounce all of these words. If you feel like you need a chemistry degree to be able to read some of them, then it's probably a bunch of stuff you probably shouldn't be having. The second thing is the list of ingredients. So the least amount of ingredients possible, where it's more in its natural state, the better. So I'd always encourage something like that, where it doesn't have this laundry list of these 37 different things. What's up at the top is generally what's the most added in it, and then it gets less as you go down. So this is the less amount in it, this is the most amount in it. So that kind of tells you what's really in it, what's in it the most, and everything there. When I'm actually reading the nutrition facts, one thing I really encourage you to look for is look at how much of the carbohydrates are coming from sugar relative to fiber. Ideally, you want a good ratio of, if there's a way you can get up to half of the carbohydrates coming from fiber and half or less, or significantly less coming from the sugar, that's more the ratio that you want. So you want a higher fiber relative to sugar content. So if I look at this one, that's not a very good ratio, right? There's a ton of sugar in each bar, very little, if at all, fiber. Whereas if I'm gonna come and grab a Kodiak one, which is not a bad brand, similar kind of thing, that one's not really a great option there. Let's see if I can find one. So for instance, obviously this one's gonna have it here. So protein and fiber, Kroger brand. I don't know how good these ones are or not. Big list, not the greatest, but this would be better than the Nature Valley ones, because yes, it still has a good amount of sugar. It looks like only 6 of it is added, so the other 5 is actually natural source, so that's not as bad. That's much better. So that 11 grams is a little misleading compared to the other one, right? This 11 is a much better option, but look at that, it has 6 grams of fiber where the other one only had 1. So if I'm gonna get something for my kids, I'm gonna get something like this. So find what they like, find what they're willing to do, and then from there, choose based on that. Now the second thing is, how much protein does it have? So this one has 6. If I'm looking back at this one, we only have 2. So, and you can look, remember how I said the added sugars? So this one has 11. They're all added sugars. So there's no natural sugar in this one relative to the other one. The other one had only 6 added sugars. So again, that other one is a much better option than this one. But secondly, why it's better is the protein content. So if you can get something that can have a good amount of fiber, at least 5 grams or so in an item like this, especially for convenience, and one that has a good amount of protein in it, that's kind of what you want to look for when you're kind of reading some of these labels and figuring out what is it should you have. Again, being conscious of the sodium intake, 2,300 or less, and then let's see if this one has it, and then being cautious of sugar additives that are kind of misleading. So the FDA and things like that, they allow certain things to be called different things. So if I look here, corn syrup, that's a sugar. Anything ending in OSE is generally a sugar, so dextrose, things like that. It can be very hard to spot. It's not just going to say, oh, this is sugar, right? So looking at different things here, again, dextrose. This one actually says sugar. Looking for other OSE words, so OSE. So that's what you want to look for when it comes to fake sugars. So those are kind of the core concepts of different things when it comes to like reading the labels in the aisles. And the biggest thing I would say is look for the protein and fiber ratio. Get good amount of both of those when you're choosing items, especially for your kids. Find ones that you know they'll like and eat. Secondly is try to stick to ones that have the least amount of ingredients possible, because that's, again, going to be more in its natural state as opposed to something that has a lot more. So if I'm looking at bars, for instance, I'm going to look at something like, and I don't know what some of these ones are. Let's see. So I have, it's called a Luna bar. It's actually a Cliff Bar version, which I'm not a fan of Cliff Bars, versus an RX bar. So look, how many ingredients? One, oh no, that's not the ingredient list. Where are you? Oh, I mean, it says right there on the front. 1, 2, 3, 4 ingredients, right? Where this one is this laundry list. It's not too crazy, but this laundry list of a bunch of things, and half of them are sugars, right? So this is going to be a huge winner relative to this one. So those are the types of things that you want to look for when it comes to that. I forgot where I just grabbed that one from. Oops. So that is kind of how I go about my shopping. If I have to come down the aisles, I'm going to use that as like my guideline, like what doesn't have a lot of ingredients, what's more in its natural state, what has a lot of fiber and protein in it, especially protein. Protein is the biggest one. The more protein you can get in, generally the better off you're going to be. What has items that are easy to pronounce, that I have a full understanding of what it is, and choosing that. So even if I'm looking at like cereals, for instance, let's see if I can find a good example of this. All right, so let's see, where are my excuse me. All right, so I'm looking at this. Like here's a prime example. I have Frosted Mini Wheats and then Kashi brand, which is pretty much Frosted Mini Wheats, right? Just a little bit different here. So if I compare the two together, total carbs 47, 48. So they're similar in carbs, but let's look at that deeper. So this one has 9 grams included, but a very high fiber content. So almost as much fiber as sugar. That's a very big positive. Now this one does have a good amount because it is from a whole grain option. So it has 6, but it has a little bit more sugar in it. Now I'm looking at protein. This one's 5, this one's 7. So this is actually not as bad as I was thinking it was. But again, looking over here, so I guess Frosted Mini Wheats isn't quite as bad as I was thinking. Yeah, I have that one there. You can see the list of different things is very small. This one, it's even better. So that's a huge thing. But if I'm going to look at just something different, just for an example here, can't find a good one. And obviously if I go over here, take a Cocoa Crispy, say I'm looking at the Kashi brand of their different stuff, and I come here, you can see a lot more ingredients, everything there. Protein's very low, only 2, 15 grams of added sugar, so a lot high, no fiber, right? So like I'm gonna encourage my kids to have the Kashi cereal versus the Cocoa Crispy. So like sometimes you might have to do a little trial and error of like what are they going to eat, what won't they eat, right? But if you can find what works for them, that they're willing and able to eat, that they enjoy, and it's it's kind of hitting these lists of different things, then you know you kind of have a winner with that. This is back. Kashi brand is not too bad. It generally has a higher protein content, which is good. You know, if you remember, I didn't talk about this today with the serving sizes, but for women it's 1 palm size of protein a day or each meal, so 3 to 4 servings of that. Men, it's 2 servings of that. So like when you're picking out your meat and things like that, that's what you want to look for on how much you should buy. You can kind of look at it and see, does it line up with that. You know, and that's, make sure anything else I wanted to go over with that. I think that is primarily it, guys. So if you have any questions watching this later, let me know. I can kind of answer for you. If I am going down the aisles, I'm going to look for things that high protein, high fiber, low sodium, low ingredient list. If I can find those, it's a much better option to go into my bag. So when you're searching for the kids, things like that, use those as like your checklist. Like, does it have a lot of protein? Does it have a lot of fiber? Does it have lower sodium? Does it have a low ingredient list? If you can do that, you're probably off to a good start. When it comes to oils and things like that, choosing oils that do better under high heat, so olive oils versus vegetable oils, things like that. Coconut oil is better. Butter for cooking is actually better, especially from a grass-fed source. There it is. Dressings that are more oil-based versus cream-based are going to be better. And again, my goal is just to give you like little things that you can kind of take away. Seasonings are very sprayed chemicals, so anytime you can get an organic, so like a Simple Truth brand, the better. But when in doubt, if you need to, like a Mrs. Dash, it works fine. It tastes pretty good. Like I use that relatively frequently. We put in a lot of our meals because I know people like it. So again, the goal of this is to make it convenient so you can stick with it, and that's the ultimate goal with it. So if you have any questions on this, follow-up questions on like what you should do, where you should go, like different things there, just shoot me a message and I will, you know, or comment below, and I'll make sure that I kind of answer it for you and you know, help you out. So hopefully this was helpful, guys. Again, if you have any other questions, anything like that, make sure you let me know, and you know, I can kind of help clarify or get you on the right track for getting the most out of grocery shopping.